Okay, welcome back to Film Feels. Wow, this is exactly what I wanted. Episode 4 of WandaVision, which is named We Interrupt This Program. I just want to talk spoilers. I just want to have my thoughts, so spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the episode, get onto Disney Plus right now, watch the episode, come back, and let's talk, because I've got things that I want to talk about. This was it. This was the episode that we've been waiting for it to sort of come together and for us to get on page with where it's going, what's happening. And it's so strange because we're getting something really meta going on where we're watching people watch the show for the first time, and we're kind of understanding it in the same way as the people in the show are understanding the show within the show. So this is really interesting. It's so different and really quite fun, to be honest. And it's fun specifically because we've got such amazing characters that have just been fully introduced now. Randall Park, when he flicked that card, man, I literally burst out laughing. I was just so happy to see that because I didn't expect it at all. It could have just been one of those easy throwaway kind of greetings like, "Hi, I'm Randall Park." "Hi, I'm Agent Wu," and then he just slaps his badge up. But they went straight in with a Marvel moment, you know, like something that ties into something in the vast universe. So that was great. That was great to see. And it's so strange here. He's like played as such a much more deeper character now. Like the way that he can sense something about the energy field, like the emotion coming from it. That's really interesting. I cannot talk about the opening sequence, the dusted returning to corporeal form. So cool. I think this is actually the most detailed I've seen the VFX on the dusting there's been. I mean, of course, like it's different to the way he was originally done, but because we have that opening like macro shot on Teyonah Parris's face, seeing her reform from the dusting, it's just much more intimate look into what the snap and the re-snap or the blip, seeing the actual consequences of them bringing everyone back, which is great. Like this intimate shot detailing an intimate look into the consequences of bringing everyone back and the pandemonium that must have caused. I thought this was really cool, really interesting. But it's interesting how it affected Monica Rambeau as a character so deeply, and we get to see her link into how she is part of SWORD and how she gets into this predicament being inside WandaVision. Now when they get to Westview, I thought that Westview was somewhere in Florida because they were talking about going to Bermuda, but we're in New Jersey, so okay, it's true. Nothing much about superheroes in the Marvel Universe can exist very far away from New York at the moment, anyway. But I thought this whole sequence was really interesting, the way that they discover the boundaries and then how she gets sucked in, and then we get to see Darcy Lewis come back, Kat Dennings, who actually I used to think she was quite annoying in the Thor movies, and after watching Thor: The Dark World the other day, I'm not saying I've changed my mind, but back then, in contrast to the other characters that were there, just kind of not annoying, but just kind of underwhelming and just boring, I guess. But in this, considering that there are major comedic characters designed to interact with her here, and also her interacting with newer characters, it was actually quite interesting. And she was a bit more level-headed, even though she was quipping and making witty remarks on everyone. She still seemed to have purpose, and also she had utility. She was using her own skills. She was the person who basically brought everything together. I thought it was really cool. So it's almost like her character has kind of been redeemed, and I actually wouldn't mind seeing more of Darcy in the future, like TV shows or movies. The newer characters, like the sword acting director, he seems a bit too nice. He seems a bit too good, and I think that this kind of usually means that this person is going to be a twist evil character later on. I don't really want that to happen. It would be nice if we just had someone who was a nice person because just because. But obviously those kind of people need a bit more depth, and at the moment this guy is a bit two-dimensional, but time will tell. The great thing with the Marvel Universe is that many things can go on from here, and then we get to see all the things come into play. I totally called the thing with the beekeeper turning out to be a guy in a hazmat suit, going through and being transformed into whatever the narrative requires. That's awesome. I was so surprised by that it actually was true, because there was all this hubbub about, oh no, they're AIM agents, because AIM agents look like beekeepers if you look at them closely in the comics. And I was like, AIM? This is not Iron Man 3. Talk to me about AIM. AIM. Anyway, I didn't really realize at first that the actual bubble isn't a bubble, it's a hexagon. That's so cool. So interesting. I'm so curious. I would love to see that actually from a distance, because just we see of the town from a distance, you don't really see the shape of it, and it kind of looks quite spherical from the outside, given the size of it. And then also there was something that was really odd, is when there's supposed to be 3,200 missing people in this town. And that's kind of interesting, because how are they possibly going to know who's who? I mean, we've only seen 16 different characters. What are these other 3,180 characters doing? They must literally only serve minor roles as fluff for the whole town. Obviously this isn't Avengers Endgame, we can't give every single person a great role right now, but I'm quite interested to see whether or not there's something bigger serving that many people in the background. There's something about the way that this played out, the way that it basically answered major questions for us, but did it in a way where the way that we were taken through the steps of explaining the biggest questions we've had so far through Sword was really cool and interesting and great writing. I really like that when it kind of comes back full circle. It does kind of mean we're stunted a decade. We would have been in the 80s by now, but now we technically are still in the 70s. The way that they've done this, the way that we now are up to speed with the outside world and the inner reality, it's quite fascinating to see where it will go from here, because it already got quite intense. I mean, that moment where you see Wanda throw Monica Rambeau through the wall, through the garage, and at first I was like, isn't the front door that way? Wouldn't that just gone right past Herb and Agnes and Vision? And I kept looking at it, and it just, I don't know why that bothered me. I don't know why that was on my head. I just had, for some reason I felt like that was the front facing of the house, and she would just go boosh right through. But she looked menacing. I thought she was menacing in the last episode when she just comes at her with her steely eyes and sends her out. We don't really get to see what happens, but at that moment I was like, those hands broke the weapon that destroyed Captain America's shield. That power is not to be messed with. She just threw Monica Rambeau out of the whole bubble. I don't know whether or not she actually has powers yet. I have a feeling that maybe if we get what we want at the end of this, we might get the reverse House of M, and she makes more mutants, and this is how Photon becomes into being. This is how Monica Rambeau gets her powers. If that's the case, that would be really cool. But if she doesn't have any powers and she took a hit like that, well, I don't know how she did that. That's crazy. Either that or secretly Wanda was protecting her as she threw her out, but she still looks pretty messed up. And then obviously probably the most iconic moment of the whole episode is where Vision comes back in asking what went wrong, and then she sees him, and then she sees him as he is, dead, and the hole in his head and his empty eyes, pale, washed out color. Ugh, that was nightmare fuel for sure. that was crazy. It's so crazy to see that, because I also feel like that we don't know for certain yet, but I actually still think that she is definitely using Vision's body as like a puppet, and maybe she's trying to get him to repair himself while she's doing all this, because she did have the ability to fix his body. Like, she was fixing his body or sealing up his wounds in Infinity War, perhaps this thing when he was in the job and he was processing calculations, maybe that's him figuring out how to fix himself, and she's allowing that by powering his body with her powers, and slowly he's trying to repair himself. That would be interesting. If that's actually what's happening, I'll be stoked if that's true, because it's super interesting and harrowing when you see that. It was awful. But I'm pretty interested where it goes from here. I think a lot of people are tentative. This may step into the realms where we go back into the sitcom format from here, and then we get just the same as we've had before. Because these are only 30-minute episodes, I think what they're going to do now is they're going to be a heavy half and half splice between the sitcom and then us viewing the sitcom through Sword. We're going to get a lot more traction, and it's probably going to be a lot more appealing to a lot more people. So if you weren't as much on board before, I think you're going to be a lot more on board from now on, because it's only going to start cooking from gas from here. This is crazy. Where is it going to go from here? What will happen? Like, there's a lot of theories. Obviously this is supposed to tie into Doctor Strange's multiverse of madness. It's only natural to assume that Benedict Cumberbatch is going to make an appearance within this series at some point. I mean, it would be a bit lame if he didn't arrive until the very last episode. I suppose that would be alright, but I really would like to see more of these cameos being a bit more fleshed out, where the character actually has a bit more purpose. But then again, possibly him showing up earlier might cause trouble in the fact that he's so powerful. If anything bad happens, why would it have gone wrong? Because Doctor Strange most likely can deal with it. That being said, well, that's what I thought. I'm really enjoying it. The pace is great. I'm so excited to see what else happens. If anyone's got anything that they'd like to talk about, any ideas, what they think, where they think this is going, I'd love to talk about it. Leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe, of course. We'll be doing a review next week of Thor: The Dark World, because I did say I watched it earlier. I want to watch something else. I want to watch something new and different. So maybe I'll watch The Little Things that just aired on HBO Max. Or maybe I'll review a movie I should have seen but didn't. Alright, anyway. Thanks, guys. Until next week. Thanks for the likes. Loves for the subs. I'll see you guys next time.